Hi, this is Bruce Buffer, your voice of the Octagon, and you're listening to MMA Mental.
Welcome to this week's MMA Mental Podcast, which is sponsored by UK Fightwear and hosted by MMA Victor Radio. Before we go in to let you know what we've got coming up for this week's show, just want to mention a few things going on. We want you to come and check out our new fantasy community, MMA Victor. We've got up where you can pick fantasy for any games, any major promotions, but we are setting up a contest for UFC 160, where the winner will win the opportunity to pick an event and get 2 UFC tickets. So definitely come and check that out and let us know what you think. If there's anything on the site you want added or changed, we're always looking for feedback to improve the site. If there's any promotions you want added, then of course come and let us know, and we can see about getting those promotions added as well. Okay, before we introduce the guests as well, I just want to mention, I want you to check out our other shows that are also hosted by MMA Victor. We've got the Early Stoppage, which is hosted by Jay Jeans. We've got the Word on the Street, hosted by Ramses. We've got the MMA Podcast, which is hosted by Jake, Ramses and Chris. And we've got the MMA Round Table, which is hosted by Jake. And it's a collaboration of all the shows together. So Jake, me, Jay, Patrick, Chris and Ramses. So definitely check all them out. Okay, this week then we've got a few guests lined up. We're doing a feature this week. We're gonna be promoting a big event that's coming up soon, the Battle of Redditch, which is on the 26th of May. It's at the Redditch Football Ground. It's an open air event, and the card is completely stacked with local talent. So we're getting on as many of those guys to talk about their fights. We've managed to get quite a few on this week. We've been very lucky to get so many good guys on. We've had this week we're starting off the show with some of the fighters from the Redditch cards. We've had Ashley Atkinson, Pobby Bennett, Aaron Atkinson, Rhys Parker, and Tom Phillips. They've all been on the show. And then we speak to former UFC welterweight Brock Jardine. He went 0-2 recently in the UFC. Had 2 very hard-fought losses. One was a decision to Rick Story. One was a crazy submission loss to Kenny Robinson with a submission that no one had seen, or it was a very rare submission anyway. So he talks about that. He was recently cut, so he talks about what he needs to do to work his way back to the UFC. Then we talk to TUF Smashes winner Norman Parke. This has been an interview I've been trying to get for a while, so it was nice to finally get Norman on. It was great chatting with him. He gave us some good insight into the house, talked us through what happened with Jon Tuck and how difficult it was with preparing for a fight, having it cancelled late, but obviously staying in shape just in case he was needed. And then we speak to TUF 17 contestant Gilbert Smith. He gives us his inside views on the house, at the different guys in the house. And again, he talks about his fight with Bubba and what he needs to do now to work his way back to the UFC as well. So hopefully you'll enjoy all those interviews. I am now joined by Ashley Atkinson. Ashley will be fighting at the Battle of Redditch on May the 26th, and he will be facing Rhys Parker. First of all, Ashley, thanks for joining us today.
That's no problem, mate.
Okay, let's before we talk about the fight, let's talk a little bit about you. Currently, what's your record in MMA?
My record is 1 win and 1 loss.
Okay, and do you fight pro or semi-pro?
I fight pro.
Fantastic. Did you do semi-pro before, or have you gone straight in at pro?
My first fight, I went straight into pro, and my last fight was semi-pro.
So you've done a little bit of both, but this fight will be pro, will it, with Rhys?
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been training in MMA?
2 years.
And what gym do you train with, and who are some of the people that you train with?
I've trained with Bobby Atkinson. I've done a bit with my brother Aaron Atkinson. I've done a bit at Chrissy Rice's gym, and I've gone down to a boxing gym as well to learn on my stand-up. Okay. And that's Vikings boxing gym.
So you obviously try and work on your all-round game, then you don't kind of focus on one area?
No, I do everything.
I mean, I think it's fair to say now within MMA you've got to be able to do it all, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what made you want to get into mixed martial arts? Is it somebody you saw or somebody you knew that was doing it? What made you want to train and then obviously fight in mixed martial arts?
Well, I've seen my big brother. He got into it and he was telling me how good it was and that I should give it a go. And I was saying, no, it's not for me. And then one day he managed to drag me for gym, and I really enjoyed it. And I took it from there. Then I started going all over the place, learning different styles.
Had you watched it before you trained?
Say again.
Had you watched mixed martial arts before you trained?
Yeah.
Was there any aspect of it that surprised you with how good or effective it was?
Techniques.
Yeah.
Techniques did surprise me. With obviously like the ground game, and there's all different sorts of stand-up. Like you got your kickboxing, your boxing, and obviously on the floor you got your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All that surprised me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an eye-opener, I think, when you first discover it, because it's so effective. And I mean, obviously for years the leading combat sport, of course, has been boxing, and then we've seen the growth of mixed martial arts, and now people are realising it's not just about being able to punch, kicking, knee and elbows, and then obviously wrestling and jiu-jitsu is just as effective as striking.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your next fight. Obviously you're fighting at Rhys Park, and you just told me something quite interesting before we started the interview about the weight of this fight. So do you want to explain to us what weight you normally fight at and what weight this fight will be at?
Well, I normally fight at 77 kg, and my opponent Rhys has asked me to drop down to 73 kg.
Okay.
So I'm doing a lot more running, watching what I eat, and having small portions instead of large portions. Try and cut the weight down a little bit. And then the day before my fight, I'll weigh myself again, and if I'm a little bit underweight, I'll have a little bit more to eat. So I know that I'm bang on weight then.
How will the weight cut affect you, do you feel? Because is this your first time cutting down to 73?
Yeah, first time this is.
How do you think it will affect you, or don't you think it will?
I don't think it will affect me, to be honest. As long as I keep training the way I am, then I shouldn't see a problem.
How do you feel in yourself? I know we're a few weeks out yet. We've got about 3 or 4 weeks. But how do you feel in yourself going into this event?
Yeah, I really can't wait, because Rhys is someone that I've wanted to fight now for 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's a grudge match between me and Rhys. So
do you know Rhys then?
Yeah, I know him really well. We just don't get on.
Oh really? So there's a little bit of bad blood going into this fight.
Yeah.
Can I ask you why there's bad blood?
Basically, what it was is because he's got a title, and I don't know how he's got it, but he runs around the area that we live, and he thinks he's a bit too big for his own shoes. And one night we was out uptown, and he just turned on me, and ever since then, it's just been bad blood.
So you're looking forward.
Yeah, I'd rather fight in the ring than on the streets and get myself into trouble.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's the right thing to do. I think as much as I love watching mixed martial arts, and I do, violence on the street is not, in my eyes, is not acceptable. This is different. This is a sport, between two athletes. So, wow, it makes the fight more interesting though, knowing there's a little bit of bad blood between Rhys. So obviously, if you know Rhys quite well, you probably know what his strengths are and what his weaknesses are. What do you feel is your strength over his weakness?
My strength is that I know that he hasn't got any punch power. But then again, he could surprise me, and he might have trained a bit more on his stand-up. But in every fight that I've watched with Rhys, he always goes for the high kick. So I know straight away to avoid that high kick.
Yeah.
And I know that he's pretty good on the ground, so I'm going to try and keep it standing up for the first round. And then the second round, I'll just take him to the floor.
What's your takedown defence like?
Mine?
Yeah.
Mine's really good. Every time, the last 2 fights I've had, when they've tried to take me down, I've just sprawled. Or I've managed to stop them taking me down, then I've took them down.
So obviously, with what you've said your game plan's going to be, it's going to be vital that you can keep the fight standing at least for the first round, like you've said. Or how do you feel as well? I mean, this is going to be quite a unique event. I mean, you've got Paul the Titan Taylor in the main event. Obviously, he's quite a big name on the UK MMA scene because he's fought a lot in UC MMA. And then on top of that, you're fighting obviously at Redditch Football Stadium. It's an outdoor stadium. It's bank holiday. It's in the day. How excited are you to get the opportunity to fight on this kind of card?
Yeah, I'm really excited, to be honest, because I think it would be the best show that Redditch has ever had. and I think the turnover will be immense.
Yeah, I mean, to have it on a football stadium, I just feel that adds to the atmosphere, especially with it being outdoor as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how the outdoor event is with the fighters, and also how it gets the crowd G'd up as well.
Yeah, well, I did do a boxing show, I think it was last year, and it was at Redditch, I did outdoors, and the football ground was absolutely rammed. You couldn't get any more people in.
What was the atmosphere like?
It was really good, to be honest. Everyone was cheering, everyone was having a laugh. Altogether, the day was a really good turnover.
So you say that was boxing. So how many boxing matches have you had?
I've had 5 boxing matches.
And what's your record as a boxer?
4 wins, 1 loss.
And do you still do that, or are you concentrating on MMA, or are you looking to do both?
I'm doing both, to be honest, but I'm more into the MMA than the boxing.
You know,
because obviously techniques again.
Yeah.
It's all technique.
You know when
go on.
No, go on. You carry on. Go on. You carry on.
And you learn different stuff every time you go training, and you keep most of the time you do go over the same stuff in every lesson, so that it's drilled into you, so it's like programmed into you.
Yeah.
So then you know what to do then in your fights.
Obviously, as you do more MMA, that's going to start to become an instinct. Will it be hard then when you do the boxing? Because obviously, with the boxing, you're limited to the fact you can punch. But in the MMA, you get used to throwing kicks, looking for takedowns, maybe throwing elbows. Are you not worried that you might do that in a boxing match?
Yeah, sometimes it does run through my head to take him down when I know I shouldn't. And that's where sometimes I get a bit confused. Because obviously sometimes when you have like MMA fights, you can either be in a cage or a boxing ring. Whereas a boxing, it's just in a boxing ring.
Yeah, and I think
nothing called cage fighting should just be in a cage, not in a boxing ring.
Yeah, I think it becomes instinct as well, doesn't it? When you train a certain style, it becomes instinct to then put that style on. Yeah,
it all comes naturally when you've done like so many lessons and all that. It's like water. You just go with the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously we're a few weeks out, so I know you've still got a bit of training to do. And out of interest, what's your weight at the moment? Do you know?
My weight at the moment is banged on 73 kg.
Oh, really? So you're at fight weight already?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's took me about a month and a half to drop that weight.
So you've just got to maintain it now. Is it a lot easier maintaining it than cutting it?
On the weekends, I do get a bit naughty. Sometimes I have a bit of a takeaway, and it puts a bit of the extra pounds back on. But I like to, work myself to get to that weight again.
Yeah.
But because it's so close to the fight now, I won't go any higher. I'll stay at this weight now. Yeah,
you've got to be careful, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I want to say I really appreciate you giving me your time today. I mean, I know we're a few weeks out, so I wish you all the luck for the next few weeks in your training and for the fight. And obviously, if you want to just shout out the gym that you're training at as well before I let you go.
Yeah, Vikings Boxing Gym.
Fantastic. Well, good luck for the fight, Ashley, and obviously I'll be there in the crowd cheering you on, mate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're now joined by Pobby Bennett. Pobby will be facing Paul the Titan Taylor at the main event of the Battle of Redditch on May 26th. Thank you for joining us today, Pobby. Okay, let's before we talk about the fight, let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been training in MMA for?
5, coming up 6 years now.
Okay, and how long have you been fighting for?
Fighting? Depends completely if you mean competing. If you mean competing, I've been doing it since I was a pretty young kid, about 6.
Okay,
I've
cool.
been competing in MMA since I was about 17.
Okay, so what did you do then before you were competing in MMA? What other combat sports did you compete in?
I've pretty much done everything from karate up to Muay Thai. I'm British champion, black belt, in Taekwondo.
Oh, fantastic.
I got that 3 gold medals, British champion.
Oh, amazing. So you've got a hell of a background then in striking.
Oh, I love striking, yeah, I do.
And then you started doing MMA. Well, so what made? I mean, obviously you've done really well. Like you say, you mentioned there the Taekwondo. You've obviously done really well in a striking sport. What made you want to then mix it up and do the grappling with mixed martial arts?
It's a more exciting game. Like, you can only get so far with striking, and then you go into a different sport where someone can actually take you down, and next thing you know, basically make you uncomfortable. Like, it's a bigger thrill for me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I have to go up against other guys that can actually, like, when you're able to beat people that stand up, then you kind of want to be beaten at another game. So it's good always to learn that other game.
I think that's a really good attitude to have. I have to say. How hard was it for you to transition from doing a pure striking sport then to doing something that's so mixed and so complete?
To be fair, I've always grown up in because I'm the youngest brother out of 4, so basically I've always grown up just rolling around on floors with my brothers anyway. So when it comes to actually doing a ground fighting game, obviously through being doing martial arts for so long, it wasn't too hard to actually pick up on another style. But honestly, it was a bit more. Yeah, it was a bit more difficult in another way. But like, if they showed me a stand-up game, I could do it. But the second they showed me, say, like something as simple as a guillotine, it was a bit harder to pick up on that alone.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it. But it come across within a couple of weeks, really.
And how?
So it's already learning.
And did you enjoy then picking up the grappling side to it and learning the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu?
It actually become one of my favourite. I actually prefer grappling now to actually stand up. But I'm comfortable both, so it's always not game.
Who do you train with? What gym do you train with?
Completely depends. Like when I'm just doing like off little bits, just obviously training with like friends and stuff. I train up in a place in Kings Heath in Birmingham. If I'm training serious MMA, then I'll go to Elements in Franklin.
Cool. Okay, moving on a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your record. What is your pro MMA record?
3-1.
And with your 3 wins so far, how have your wins come about? Is it knockout, submission, decision?
Knockout, all 3.
Oh, all 3 knockout. And out of interest, what rounds have they been in?
Round 1 within the first 2 minutes, all 3.
Wow. So you're obviously a very explosive, a very explosive striker.
I like my timing.
I don't like to dwell on the losses, but how was your loss? What was that? Was that a decision or knockout or submission?
A TKO, ground and pound.
Okay. But so ideally, then you want to look to try and keep a fight standing, and then you're happy to get obviously with your timing look for a knockout. What do you know about your opponent? Because I think it's fair to say Paul the Titan Taylor's got quite a big reputation on the UK scene.
I know he's got pretty good wrestling, and I know that he's a fairly good stand-up fighter. But to be honest, a punch is a punch, a kick's a kick. Either way, a fight's a fight, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously you're training for the fight, so you're going to be well prepared. How excited are you at the opportunity to headline such a good card? It's going to be at the Redditch football ground. It's going to be open air. You know, like I said, you're facing a big name from the UK scene in Paul Taylor. Of course, he's fought quite a lot on UCMMA, which has been on TV. So, how excited are you at the opportunity?
Well, as soon as they offered me a local fight for me, so because I'm only down the road, and basically, me and Paul were supposed to fight a bit sooner on last year, and that fight got called. I actually don't know why, but it got called. And they offered the fight again, and I don't know. It was more. I don't know. It was more. I'm just curious more than anything. So I took the fight straight away, but then I realised that it was I actually want this fight, so I took the fight straight away.
Brilliant.
For it, so yeah.
With what you know of Paul, and obviously you know your own game, what do you feel are your strengths to his weaknesses?
Pardon?
With what you know of Paul, what do you feel are your strengths to his weaknesses?
weaknesses, but at the same time, I don't really think I've got many weaknesses. So, like, his striking game, I know he's got quick hands because he has a boxing background, and I've got a kicking background, but I love using my hands at the same time. So I just personally think the fight is just going to be a pure stand-up, if I'm completely honest. So it's going to be heavy hand, really.
I think it's going to be. I think it's really going to be a fantastic fight. I mean, it's going to be a good card, but obviously with you and Paul headlining it, it's going to be a very, very exciting main event, I feel.
I think it'll be pretty quick, but I can't tell you who I personally think would win. It's MMA. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I really appreciate you giving me your time today. Obviously, I wish you all the luck for the fight. We'll be there to watch it, and obviously be there cheering you on from the crowd. So, thank you very much for giving me your time today, Pobby.
No problem.
Okay, I'm now joined by Aaron Atkinson. Aaron will be fighting on May 26th at the Battle of Redditch, and we continue in the build-up to get to the promotion, to the event, getting some of the fighters on to talk to us a little bit about themselves. First of all, Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
No problem, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's before we obviously talk a little bit about your fight, let's talk a little bit about you. So what's your background? How long have you been training MMA for?
Probably around about 2.5 years now, on and off, I'd say.
And who are some of the people? Who do you train with?
I train with Chris, Rhys, the organiser. Jimmy's just opened working out in Redditch, and I also train over at Gracie Barrow in Birmingham from a jiu-jitsu.
So what would you say? What is your style then? What are your strong points of your game?
My strong points, I'd say, is my ground game. That's what I've done mainly my ground game, and a bit of wrestling, obviously, to get it where I want to play it.
What's your before you started doing mixed martial arts? What was your background? Had you done any other kind of martial art?
Not really, just boxing on and off when I was a bit younger. And a friend of mine had started doing jiu-jitsu over at Gracie Barrow in Birmingham, and I started doing a little bit with him. And as soon as I started doing it, I really enjoyed it. And I've always wanted to do some sort of competing. And I like the idea of mixed martial arts because I could never really bring myself to stick to one specific thing.
Yeah.
And mixed martial arts obviously gets to be a bit of everything as well. So I find that keeps it more exciting for me and more appealing. So
what's your record at the moment?
In pro, it's 0-2, which is not really good. So basically, as soon as I started training, within about a few months, I thought, I'll have a crack at fighting, and soon realised I need to do a bit more training before I took any more fights.
Did you fight semi-pro before?
No, I actually fought pro twice first, and then I fought semi-pro about 18 months ago after the 2 pro fights. I'd had a bit of time away, done a bit more training.
Yeah.
And I took a semi-pro fight at about 24 hours notice, and actually come away with a win on that one. So now I've upped my training even more from then to step the game back up again now, and hopefully my training's back on track to be able to compete at the professional level.
Was it nice to get the win?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
How did the fight play out? How did you win the fight?
Short notice. Say again, sorry?
Sorry, how did the fight play out? How did you win the fight?
It was armbar in about 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first round. That was always a bonus as well, taking on such short notice, not knowing who's going to have the cardio to last the distance.
Yeah.
And obviously, in finishing early was a bit of a weight off my mind, really.
Definitely. I mean, we've seen within mixed martial arts, cardio is huge. And if you take a fight on short notice, you can't. I'm sure you're a naturally a fit person, but being fit and being match fit is two different things, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is definitely. I found that out in my second fight. I think that was a few weeks after my first fight, and straight away, because I think that one went to noon off the end of the second round, and I realised then after that fight, my fitness and strength and conditioning needed to up my game on that big time. I don't think people realise how fit you have to be to do this sport.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you go the distance and you go 15 minutes, that's a hell of a long time to be active, especially with all the different changes with the striking, the wrestling, and the ground game. You burn up so much energy, don't you?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, especially if you're on the bottom and you've got someone on top grinding around you. It soon takes it out of you a bit when you try and get out of there.
So obviously, before we talk a little bit about your opponent, I want to talk a little bit about the event, because it's fair to say the event's quite unique. It's happening in the middle of the day, which is unique in itself, and I think. But obviously, it's also at the Redditch football ground, and it's going to be outdoors as well. How exciting is it to be on this kind of card?
It's quite exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time for me. Obviously, being a local fighter, it's going to be obviously good to fight in front of everyone I know, and at the same time, a bit nerve-wracking as well. I think it'll be good because I think there's going to be, from what I can gather, there's going to be quite a big crowd there. So that'd be good as well, especially obviously if I can manage to come away with the win as well. Yeah,
it should be. It should make for a really good atmosphere, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I know they've had a boxing event on at the same venue before, but I think this being the first MMA event that's going to be held there, and the first MMA event that's going to be held in Redditch, I think it should be the first of many, really.
Well, yeah, from the way this card's played out and the setup that Chris has got, I don't imagine this being a one-off. I mean, it's a really solid card, especially when you go up to the main event with Pobby Bennett and Paul Taylor. That's going to be a very exciting fight.
I'm looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your opponent then. You're facing Sean Kelly. You've told me before we start the interview. Obviously, you're fighting at bantamweight. What do you know about your opponent?
I know he's got quite a good background. I think he's a featherweight champion at amateur rules for Fight UK. I think it's the NSA amateur rules.
Yeah.
And I know he's, from what I can see, his record's 3-0 on that. And I think he's had one or two others on different organisations as well. And I also know he fights out of UTC as well, which is a really good gym from Birmingham as well. So I know he's coming from a good camp. So I know it's going to be quite a difficult fight as well. Yeah,
and that Fight UK is quite a big promotion as well, isn't it? So you're looking forward to the challenge then? Looking forward to building on your last fight?
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the challenge because I think I know he's got a good stand-up as well, from what I can see watching his fight videos and doing a bit of research on him. And I'm just hoping I've got the slight edge when it comes to the ground. I mean, from what I can see, his hands don't look like they're going to bother me too much. And like I say, hopefully I can play the game how I want to play it and dictate the fight to how I want the fight to go, and not how he wants the fight to go.
Definitely, that's what you've got to do, and you've got to make sure he fights at the pace you want to fight at. Now, I know you said to me you'd be fighting at bantamweight, so let's talk a little bit about the weight and the cut. What kind of weight do you walk around at, and what weight do you need to get down to for bantamweight?
Well, I walk around at the minute about 70 kilo. Well, I was 70 kilo. I've been dieting at the minute, and obviously I've got to cut down to 62 kilo. So that's new for me as well, because I've always fought roughly around 68 kilo, which is what I used to walk around at. I've never really done the whole weight cut thing before. But for this fight, I thought if I'm going to train properly, I might as well do it all properly as well and try and get the weight cut in and see if I'll feel comfortable going down to that weight. So I'm dieting down. I've got another couple of kilos to go on my diet to get down to around 66 kilo. And then do a big walk cut the last few days just before the weigh-ins and get down to the weight then.
And obviously get it all put back on then for the fight so you can be at maximum strength. That's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Just plenty of rehydration afterwards and all the right foods and stuff like that.
Is your weight going to plan then? Are you at now where you need to be?
Yeah, I think I've got about another 1.5-2 kilos to lose in the next 3 weeks, I think it is. The next 2.5-3 weeks. So it's roughly about just under a kilo a week, I think it is, I've got to lose, which should be easing up about £2 a week.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be too bad. I mean, it's been going well so far. So all going well. I'll be down at the weight I need to be about a week before the fight, ready for the water cut then.
Have you had to be really strict on your diet, or is that something that's come natural to you, or?
Well, I eat fairly healthy anyway, to be fair. I eat quite a few healthy things, and I just sort of cut out all the junk food I used to eat in between and stuff, and all the snacks I used to have, and just made the portions that I'm having smaller, cutting down the calories and stuff.
Well, I know we're obviously a few weeks out. I think it's just over 3.5 weeks now to the event, so I appreciate you coming on so close to the time of the fight, and obviously we wish you all the luck. So I don't know if you want to do any shout-outs before you go. I want to shout out any friends and family that just say hello before we end the interview.
Shout out to Phillips, really. I asked him if they wouldn't mind sponsoring me for this fight, and Sonny at the gym said yes. So I'll get him free membership off him for the lead up to the fight, which is always a bonus to help in this recession with obviously paying for gym and everything. So big thanks to him and to the wife, really, for putting up with me not being in the house that often and being out training all the time.
That's good. It's nice you've been able to get the sponsorship as well. That's going to take a lot of pressure off you getting that kind of support as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to help quite a lot, really, especially obviously in times they are at the minute.
Well, we appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and I wish you all the luck for the fight. And obviously, I'll be there in a few weeks, cheering you on.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, we're now joined by Rhys Parker. Rhys will be fighting at the Battle of Redditch on May 26th. He'll be facing Ashley Atkinson. Thanks for joining us today, Rhys.
Pardon?
Thanks for joining us today.
Oh yeah, sound, you're right.
So obviously you'd be facing Ashley Atkinson. So before we talk about Ashley, let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been training in mixed martial arts for?
Well, I've been training since the age of 11. Got to black belt in taekwondo, and then done 2 years of kickboxing, 2 years of Thai, 2 years of wrestling, 2 years of Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
So you've trained quite a lot of different things then.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm very well rounded.
What?
I train 3-4 times a week. I've got a lot of experience. Ashley, I know about Ashley is that he don't really like me. It's sort of a grudge match, but at the end of the day, knowledge is power. You know what I'm saying? And if he thinks he can beat me, what's he got? He's got his boxing, right? His boxing. If he tries boxing with me, I'll kick his front leg. He won't have a leg to stand on. You know what I'm saying?
So why is there bad blood, do you think, then, between the two of you?
Well, I don't really know. He fought his cousin Bobby, and then he wants to throw his chances at me. But at the end of the day, he's had that pro fight, which he won by luck with Bobby, and then he's had a few semi-pro fights, and he's lost them, and then he thinks he can fight me. It's mental.
What's your record like, Rhys?
Well, my record is 2-4 at the moment.
What weight is this fight at?
This fight's at 70 kilos. I usually fight at 66. I got the BC MMA British featherweight title. That's at pro level as well, and that's 66. But I'm fighting this weight. I'm fighting this bout at 70, and he's 77, I think, at the moment. But he's cutting his weight to 73, so it's catch weight, I reckon.
Okay. So obviously you've trained in quite a lot of different things then. So has that all been at one club, or have you moved around and trained at different clubs?
Well, yeah, I do. But Verve, I'm sponsored by Verve, and that's a lot of help with my taekwondo and my kickboxing, a lot to my fitness as well as from squares. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of road running as well, a lot of road work. I'm doing hill sprints, keeping fit as you do.
So
I can't wait, mate. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we're only a few weeks away now as well. It's coming up quickly. You talked there about the weight. Obviously, you normally fight at a smaller weight. So I'll take you. Yeah,
I don't have no weight to cut, so I'm going to be fighting at a comfortable weight. I'm going to be ready. Knowledge is power, as they say. I know a lot more about the game than what he does. I don't have a clue what he's thinking of trying to fight me. He's just going to get shown up in front of the whole of Redditch.
I take it. Are you from Redditch as well, Rhys?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a local grudge match then.
Yeah, could say that. Yeah. And now he's going on chatting about me. He's going to get slaughtered, mate. He's going to get smashed.
So who are you training with at the moment? Are you training with a sec gym at the moment, or are you still training around?
Yeah, I'm training with Verve. I'm sponsored by them. They give me loads of free help, nutrition advice, everything. They give me free equipment as well. And I'm sponsored by Fitness Unlimited, which is a gym in Redditch, Millsville House.
Yeah.
And they give me free access to the gym and everything, so I can go and hit the bags and have a spar and that and do the weights, conditioning. Yeah, it's going great. My training program is awesome. Top of the peak, mate, top of the peak.
And obviously, how excited are you as well at the prospect of fighting at the Redditch Stadium in front of such a big crowd and an open event?
Yeah, he's got a lot of pressure on him, he has, yeah. He's got a lot of pressure. I think he sold a few tickets and that. He's got a lot of pressure. He's a local lad, same as me. Everyone's going to be there, all of his family. I'm going to take the fight. I'm going to do the fight smartly. You know, I'm going to fight smart. If he wants to clinch with me, I'm better than him in the clinch. I'm going to use my knees, my elbows. I'm going to back away with the strikes. He's probably got the edge on me with his boxing because he does a lot of boxing. But at the end of the day, mate, he ain't going to get closer to me to use his boxing. I'm going to keep him back on my legs because I'm good for my legs. I am, yeah.
So is that where you feel your strength is? You can keep him at kicking distance and obviously work his legs.
I'm going to find my range, and I'm going to keep him at range with my legs. And when we go in, I'm just going for the 1-2, I reckon. Clinch. I'm better at him than wrestling. My wrestling is about 70 times as good as his. So I've done 2 years of wrestling, you know. So if he tries to clinch with me, I might just level change, take him down, ground and pound him maybe, get him to mount, and I'll probably work for a submission or something. I could beat him without even hitting him. Put it that way.
So you've obviously looked at the fight. You feel very confident going into this fight, then? Yeah,
definitely, mate. My fitness, 100%. I've been training everything, the conditioning, even down to the diet. My diet as well. Even though I haven't got no weight to cut, but my diet is just pasta and chicken. You know, I'm not losing in front of the whole of Redditch. My family's going to be there, everything. You know, it's a bit of a bad place for him to choose to fight me in Redditch, really. I'm not no walkover like his cousin. Like he beat his cousin by luck because his cousin got gassed out. Bobby is one of my good friends and that, but he's not going to be able to walk over me like that. I'm telling you. He's going to get, as soon as I finally open him with the jab, if I open him up with the jab, I'm either going with the big right hand taking his head off, or I'm going with the head kick and his head will be gone. I'm going for a knockout first round, and if not, second round submission.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to the fight, Rhys. Obviously, we're a few weeks out, and I'm sure you've got a few more weeks training.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Well,
a few more classes to fit in, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I appreciate you coming on today's show, and obviously I wish you all the luck for the fight.
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
No problem. Thanks, Rhys. Bye.
See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
I am now joined by Tom Phillips. Tom will be fighting on May 26th for the Battle of Redditch, and he will be facing Justin Venables. Thank you for joining us today, Tom.
Hello, you alright?
Okay, we're a few weeks out from the fight. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, to be fair. Training's going well. The weight cut's going well. Just getting eager now, getting close to the event.
How much weight do you have to cut to make 72? Is it 72? Is that correct?
It is, yeah. Fighting at 72 on this one. I've cut down. I was walking around a bit heavy at about 78, but when I went into fight camp, I found it quite easy to get down. I've maybe started to cut the last 3 kg properly.
And you're feeling okay? It's not draining you of energy?
No, well, if anything, I feel better. I'm not carrying hardly any body fat, not compared to when I'm walking around.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, before we talk about the fight, let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been training mixed martial arts for, Tom?
I started off in Acox Green about 2.5-3 years ago with Stevie B's, and then I fluttered around with interclubs and stuff like that, and then I had a little breakout for about 4 months and moved up to UTC in Erdington, and then that was about 9-10 months ago, and I've been there almost every day training hard.
And what's that gym like? What's it like training there and being part of that fight camp?
It's really good. I've settled in quite well. The lads are good there, and
they can't do enough for you. Any questions, anything you need going on, they'll always steer you the right way. And I feel like I've come on a lot more since I've been there. In the like small time I've been there as well.
What do you feel are your strengths then within your game? Do you prefer the stand-up or the ground or both, or what do you prefer?
Well, when I left Stevie B's, my groundwork was becoming my main strength. But since I moved to UTC, I've done a lot of work on my stand-up without like giving too much away. But I have done. I'd say I'm all-rounded now a lot more than before I started UTC.
And that's obviously what you want, isn't it? Going into a fight, that the more tools you've got, the better prepared you're going to be for wherever the fight takes place.
Yeah, that's the main. Wherever it's preferred to go, I've got tools to use.
Okay, before we talk about your opponent, let's talk a little bit about the event. Obviously, it's going to be a big event. It's at the Redditch football ground. It's bank holiday weekend. And it's obviously football open air as well. How do you feel about getting the opportunity to fight on such a good card?
It don't really set in the nerves until the day before, and then I start the nerves set in. But the nerves are always good. They keep you on edge. If you ain't got no nerves, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll obviously fire you up, won't they? Do you feel excited about being on such a good card? And obviously, I mean, there's some good names on the card. I know it's certainly big for the area of Redditch as well. You feel excited about being on the card?
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, there's Paul Taylor's fighting. One of my mates. He's a really good fighter. I like watching him fight. And one of my other close mates and my sparring partner through the whole of my career, Ron Houston's fighting. So, and it's the first show that we fought on together. So I can't wait to fight, and it'll be good.
Yeah,
helping each other in camp.
I've just interviewed Ryan. Actually, I interviewed him about an hour ago. Yeah, he's definitely fired up. He's a bit of a grudge match as well, isn't it?
I don't know much about his opponent. We've had a look on the internet now. I don't know what's going on personally with him through this fight, but we couldn't really find. We only found one fight to be looking into for him about his opponent. So, but I've just really been concentrating on my own work.
Of course, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your opponent. So then you're facing Justin Venables. What do you know about your opponent?
Well, one of my old training partners, Saul, fought him on Return of the Cyborg when Chris Rhys was fighting, the one who's doing this show now.
Yeah.
And but he only went the first round, and this is the only thing I found on him. And I've watched that DVD. I've seen a bit about his game, the way he comes out, but like I said, there's not much to go on off one round, you know what I mean? And plus, that was over a year and a half ago, the same as me when I last fought. A lot can change in a year and a half. Was
that Saul Boyd out of interest?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I chatted with Saul a while ago as well, because he fought at an event in Coventry as well. So, okay, obviously we're like I said, we're a few weeks out. Obviously, training's going well, weight's going well. So what do you feel are your strengths over his weaknesses then going into the fight? Again, without giving too much away.
I don't know how to answer that without giving any away, to be fair. Like I said, I mean, I'm prepared for whatever he brings to me. If he wants to stand and bang, then I'm more than happy to stand on my feet and bang. But if he wants to take it to the ground, then I'll let my skills do the talking on the ground.
Brilliant. It's going to be, like you say, it's going to be a fantastic event. Obviously, we're a few weeks out. I wish you all the luck for the event, and I really appreciate you coming on and giving me your time today, Tom.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we're now joined by UFC welterweight Brock Jardine. First of all, Brock, I just want to say a big thank you for joining us today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. We were looking forward to getting the opportunity to speak with you. So what I'd like to do is delve a little bit into your history to let our listeners know about you and your road to the UFC. So you've been fighting professionally since 2007. What made you want to get into mixed martial arts?
I wrestled my whole life, so I wrestled, middle school, high school, and then got to wrestle 4 years in college, and then after wrestling was over, I was kind of thrilled. I was like, I don't have to diet or make weight anymore or work out. And about after 6 months of just sitting around not doing anything, I was like, oh man, I want to compete. So I kind of started doing some jiu-jitsu tournaments, and shortly after got into MMA.
How did you find the transition from the wrestling to the jiu-jitsu tournaments?
The transition went well. You know, it was a little rough at first. You know, not getting used to being on your back, and then you know just having to watch out for your arms and legs behind. And I did all right in the tournaments, and then I realized I was like, I want to be able to like take people down and punch them rather than just sit there and try to submit them. So I feel like I'm a better at that than as far as just the submission game goes. But I do enjoy the submissions as well.
I think it's fair to say that it's kind of considered as I think as the number one base now in mixed martial arts is wrestling. Did that influence you wanting to get into mixed martial arts, knowing that wrestling was such a good base for the sport?
Yeah, I've definitely been a fan of MMA and UFC for a long time, and definitely, you know, my favorite fighter growing up was Matt Hughes. So, you know, he kind of paved the road for wrestlers. But you know, after wrestling's done, you know, you can kind of still have a career competing and you know, doing what you love. So I kind of followed that road, you can say.
So after making the transition from wrestling to jiu-jitsu, how difficult or easy was it for you to make the transition from jiu-jitsu to MMA, which obviously included the striking?
Oh man, it was pretty rough. You know, early in my career, I probably only trained I had my wrestling. I did jits back for like 3 months, and then shortly after, I like booked my first fight, and I really didn't train a whole lot of stand-up. But early in my career, I just got away with, you know, being able to take people down and ground and pound and submissions, and you know, I was able to get away with it for a little bit, and then as you started winning and, you know, fights get tougher and tougher, that's when I kind of realized, I was like, oh man, I can't take everyone down, so I better learn how to punch, how to kick. And it was definitely a hard transition to make for me, but now that, you know, I've been doing it for a while, it's my favorite thing to do. I really enjoy the stand-up, you know, technique days and sparring days, and you know, and back in the day, those used to be the practices. I was like, oh man, I don't want to practice tonight. I'm going to get beat up by all the good strikers and I can't take them down. And but now I really enjoy all aspects of it.
Do you feel that obviously training with strikers like that has really helped bring your game on then?
Yeah. You know, I'm lucky enough to be at a gym where, you know, Court McGee, Ramsey Nijum, Steve Seiler, Josh Berkman, Jason South. We got a bunch of up-and-comers, tough guys, and we got a really tough room. And so, I mean, you know, we all kind of started it together. Like me and Ramsey, we wrestled in college together, and then we kind of got into MMA around the same time. I got into a little bit before he did, but you know, it's kind of nice having that unity because it's, you know, we all started from, you know, pretty much just a wrestling background, and then, you know, we were able to develop all aspects of MMA, and now, you know, my teammates, Court and Ramsey and Steve are in the UFC. I was in the UFC. I got released after my last fight, you know, trying to make my way back, and, you know, guys like Josh Berkman, who fought 10 times in the UFC, and now, you know, it's going to be the main event, World Series of Fighting. So it's definitely you know, a very tough room to have a good day in, but, you know, it definitely has helped me become the fighter I am today.
You have to say that some of those names you mentioned, it's such an impressive a group of people to train with, and we've been quite lucky on this show because we've actually spoke to Ramsey and Stephen Seiler, and they're both great guests to have on the show. But I mean, Stephen Seiler's coming off a fantastic win at the weekend. He had a really back and forth fight, and of course, at one time he was looked like he was, you know, he lost a round, then he come back and won the third round. It was a fantastic fight, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it was a great fight. You know, dominated that first round, and then I'm not sure how that kid was able to breathe with that submission attempt, but somehow he got out of it, and I was a little afraid Seiler's arms might have been gassed, and you know, his legs and arms were gassed a little bit going into that second, but you know, he finished strong in the third and was able to get the big win. And I mean, he's a gamer. I mean, 4-1 in the UFC. First 5 fights won 4-1. I mean, that's really hard to do. So he's definitely a hard worker, and he definitely showed that in his last fight.
And not only is he 4-1 as well, but they've not exactly given him an easy route. I mean, Cole Miller, for example, is a true vet and has obviously been a success at lightweight, and he dropped down to featherweight. And of course, Stevens had to beat him and his brother because he beat his brother on the show. So if you're going to face one of the Miller brothers, whether Cole or his brother, it's not going to be an easy fight. For him to beat both, it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So okay, let's.
Not too many people can say that.
No, you're absolutely right. Let's talk a little bit about your road to the UFC. I know, like you say, you've just said you've been released, and you're obviously going to work your way back, which is, I'm sure that's what you're aiming for. But let's talk about your road there. I mean, you went 9-1, and you had a hell of a run, and your only loss actually was to a current UFC lightweight and obviously Ultimate Fighter winner. So let's talk a little bit about some of your fights. What were some of your personal highlights on your way to the UFC with your 9 wins?
Yeah, I mean, before I fought Tony, I fought WEC vet Dave Terrell, and after that win, I was like, oh man, like, he was in the WEC, he was on TV, he was fighting on one of the bigger organizations at the time, and I was like, man, maybe I can make a career out of this. So after that win, that's when I was kind of like, all right, man, I need to really. I was still working full time, but I made sure I was getting in my, 2 practices a day. Before that, I just kind of work and then work out at night, and so after that Dave Terrell win, I was like, all right, so I would work out in the morning I'd wake up at 8, work out 8:30 to 9:30, shower, go to work. I'd work 10 to 6, sometimes 10 to 7, and then I go home and get changed and head over to the gym and work out from about, 8 to 9:30, 8:30, 10 o'clock at night, and go home and pretty much go straight to bed. And, I did that for a few years. It was about 2 years I did that for, just, nonstop training, working. And so after that Dave Terrell fight, I got to fight Tony, and even though it was my first loss, it was a great fight. At the time, that card, Rob Emerson, UFC vet Rob Emerson, was the co-main event, and me and Tony were the main because we were fighting for a title. And Rob Emerson came up to me after that fight. He was like, dude, that was one of the best fights I've ever seen. Like, hold your head up, man. You did great. And so, having someone like Rob come up to me to me, I was, a nobody at the time, and having this guy that had a handful of fights in the UFC, and he was just like, hey man, that was awesome. That was one of the highlights of my career. And then, after the Ferguson fight, I changed some things in my training. I got a strength and conditioning coach, and he really helped me. And my next 2 fights, were like a combined 52 seconds, and so that was pretty cool to me. That's when I first started to really showcase my stand up. The one was a 30-second win. I dropped the kid and got on top, choked him out, and then my next one was my first knockout ever. So those were kind of highlights to me, just because it kind of showed my evolution. And then probably the low point of my career was after that. I had to get shoulder surgery, and so I was out for a year, and so that was very difficult. But then I was able to come back and get a big TKO win over WEC vet Blas Avena. And so after that fight, that was when I, shortly after, I got the 3-week notice call for the UFC against Rick Story. So definitely some good times and some low times getting to the UFC, and it's definitely worth it. I'd do it all again.
How nice was it to get that call and to be recognised for all your hard work you've been doing, especially when you talk about training, going to work, going home, training again. How nice was it for you to be recognised for what you've done?
Oh man, I I just got done teaching class that morning, and my manager called me, and he was like, because at the time Ramsey and Steve were fighting on the card in New Jersey. It was the UFC on FX4, and so he was bugging me. He's like, hey man, you should go out there and help support Ramsey and Steve and help, corner them and work out with them and everything. I was like, oh man, I really wanted to. I just, just with work and right now I teach classes at the Pit Elevated, so I get to teach and just train full time. So at the time I was just kind of like, I need to teach and train, and I got my daughter. She's getting ready to turn 3 now, so I was just kind of like, I should probably, hold off on traveling and everything, save some money. And so he's been bugging me to do that for a while, and then he called me one morning. He's like, hey man, how do you feel about going to New Jersey? I was like, oh man, I told you, I wish I could, but I can't. He's like, well, what if the UFC pays for it? I was like, why would the UFC pay for it? And kind of sat there quiet for a second. I was like, you kidding me? He's like, no man, they offered you a fight with Rick Story. I was like, hell yeah. So, I ended up getting to fight on the same card as Ramsey and Steve, and we had a bunch of family and friends there, and a bunch of people from Utah made the trip out. And it was a great night, even though Ramsey and Steve had first round finishes, and even though I lost, I put up a good fight with a former title contender, so it was a good night all around.
That story's amazing. I mean, I can't imagine how you felt in that moment when you got that call. I know Patrick's eager to jump in, so I'm going to let him jump in shortly, but I've got to ask you one question. Of course, your last fight in the UFC was against Kenny Robertson, and I think it's fair to say Kenny pulled off one of the funkiest submissions I've ever seen. Had you seen that submission before? Did you see any setup for it?
No. I mean, it's a lesson learned. I give up my back a lot to, stand up, escape, and whatnot. And, I've been able to get away with it for so long, and, that happened to be one of his favorite moves, and he did his homework and watched the Rick Story fight and saw that, hey, he gives up his back a lot, and so he probably knew that he had a chance to hit it in the fight, and I went for that guillotine choke, and it was tight. I'm pretty sure I almost had it, and he fought out of it, and then he ended up taking my back, and I did a good job of defending the chokes and everything, and then I kind of tripoded up, went to kind of escape like I would normally do, and I thought he was falling off, and then next thing I know, he's like grabbing my leg, so I kind of thought he was going for an arm bar, and then next thing you know, my leg's out, and I just feel this pain in my hamstring, and I'm trying to hold on, and then I kind of realized I wasn't going anywhere, and I needed to tap before any serious injury occurred to me that could have possibly ended my career. So hats off to him. Crazy submission, and I think a lot of people are already considering it submission of the year. So I mean, can't really do too much except tip your hat to the guy and say you got me.
I don't really think you did too much wrong, to be honest with you, because I've watched thousands of fights and I've never ever seen that submission before. And then since he's done it, there's been another video posted of the submission. But I think when you've got a submission that hasn't been done before or been done on a regular basis, how do you defend against it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things that if you've never seen it, how do you prepare for it? And when someone like Joe Rogan after the fight's like, man, what was that? I've never seen that before. And Joe's been around the MMA world and jiu-jitsu world for a very, very long time. So, I mean, when someone like Joe Rogan's like, hey, what was that? Like, I guess it takes a little bit of the pain away, I mean, it still sucks to lose and everything, but, he got me in a crafty submission, and, now I kind of know how to defend it, and I give up my back a lot less now. I'm a lot more aware of, hey, quit giving up your back, keep your back to the mat, and then let's stand up from there rather than, I'll give him your back and just stand up. So
that's what you've got to do. You've got to learn from it. And like you say, when someone like Joe Rogan, who we know is trained quite to a high level of jiu-jitsu as well, and when he doesn't know what it is, it says it all. I know Patrick's eager to jump in. Are you good to go, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm very good, Ray. And Brock, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate your time today.
hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about some of your earlier fights. In your third fight, you took on Kurt Patterson, and you were able to make pretty quick work of him. You got the takedown early. You were able to work your way to his back, and you got a rear naked choke submission. Do you prefer the quick finishes over decision victories, or does it really matter to you?
I'm definitely always looking for the finish. That's why in my last fight against Kenny Robertson, I went to that guillotine choke. Looking back on it, it probably wasn't the best idea, but I just, I like to look for the finishes. I try to, put on a good fight for the fans, and so unfortunately my last one didn't work for me. But I've had some wars, I've had a couple decisions, and then I've had a couple quick finishes as well. So it's not exactly one of those things I look for, but if it happens, I'm very happy.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of quick finishes, your finish over Kenny Ento was pretty brutal. You knocked him out cold. It was a great knockout. What was going through your mind as you landed that knockout blow?
It was been working on that setup for a while, and when that right hand landed, it didn't really even feel like it hurt my hand or anything like that. Like, I felt it land, but it wasn't like I felt like I didn't land it hard. But obviously watching the film, it landed, and definitely was a loud hit, and I just kind of saw him falling over, and he kind of hit the canvas, and I was like, oh, and I went to run over to get on him, and then the ref kind of broke me up. So I guess I wouldn't say it was different from any other punch. I felt like I probably hit Story harder with some overhand rights, but he just, ate them and kept moving forward. So yeah, I guess I just happened to hit it on the right spot. So
yeah, that was a great knockout. And your TKO over Blossomania, I know you touched on it briefly. That really was a great finish. You were mixing up strikes, and you finished them with a great flurry of combos, and that had to be a huge moment as well.
Say what? Sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
Oh, sorry about that. No, I was just saying your finish over Blossomania, you had a lot of really good strikes you were mixing up. You were throwing in the high kicks, putting together a lot of good combos with the hands, and that had to be just as satisfying a finish.
Oh yeah, no, that was my first knockout win ever. So I used to joke around with my coaches like, oh man, if I ever knock someone out, I'm gonna retire, because I just used to be a wrestler and didn't really even know how to punch, and so the fight before I finally dropped somebody, and then I got on top of them and choked them out, and so that one was my first knockout. So I was just like, oh man, I like this whole punching people thing.
Definitely. Now you touched on briefly. You've been in the UFC, and they let you go after the Kenny Robertson fight. Are you looking to get with maybe a Bellator or World Series of Fighting, or maybe stick to some smaller shows and work your way back in the UFC?
Yeah, I don't want to sign with Bellator just because I would like to get back into the UFC. The only problem I have with Bellator is it seems like their fighters, if you're one of their top fighters, they keep you pretty active. But as far as everyone else, they don't seem to really keep those fighters too active. And so I'm just trying to, fight 3 to 4 times a year. Here in Utah, our gym has our own promotion, Showdown Fights. Possibly might fight for them. I know RFA has expressed some interest, so I'm just looking to, I would love to make it back to the UFC, but I mean, my main goal is just to keep fighting for a living. Do what I love. Like I said before, I was working full time and training full time, and now with the support of the Pit Elevated and my main sponsor, VA Mortgage Leader, I'm just able to teach classes and train, and I get to spend a lot of time with my daughter and my girlfriend, and I really do enjoy life a lot more now that I have the time to enjoy the smaller things in life. So my main goal is just to keep fighting full time and be able to do what I love. And if that leads back to the UFC, to where I can join my teammates again, that'd be great. But if not, I can still make decent money fighting other places and still, teaching classes and doing what I love. So can't beat that.
Yeah, that's definitely awesome. We're glad to hear things are going well for you, Brock. And we just want to thank you again for your time. And please feel free, before we let you go, I want to give you a chance to just shout out any of your sponsors and let the fans know how they can follow you on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, just want to thank the Pit Elevated and VA Mortgage Leader. Without them, none of this would be possible. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Brock Jardine, and I also have a Brock Jardine fan page on Facebook. So.
Well, thank you for your time today, Brock. We were looking forward to getting on this show, and we appreciate you coming on and having a chat with us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Okay, speak to you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Tom, before we let you go, I know you're doing the Fight for a Cause. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the cause?
Yes, and it's basically everything that turns off my fight through like my ticket sales and stuff like that. People have offered sponsors for knocking them out and head kicks. It's all going towards a young girl that's fighting against leukemia. So the more ticket sales that come through or sponsors and that, the better, because every little helps towards it.
If people want to buy tickets directly from you, Tom, how can they do it?
It can be through Facebook. Facebook's probably your best option. Or I'm on Twitter as well.
So we've got obviously
any of the social networks.
Tom Phillips on Facebook. What's your Twitter handle, Tom?
It's at Tommy P MMA.
Brilliant. Okay, so if anyone wants to buy any tickets off Tom, and obviously any money that he raises will be going towards Neve, who's fighting leukemia, which is the same cause, of course, that Ian the Machine Freeman's rooting for at the minute. Of course, he's going to be at the event as well. You can contact Tom either on Facebook at Tom Phillips or on Twitter at Tom P MMA.
Yeah, Tommy P, TOMMY P MMA.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for that, Tom.
It's okay.
Okay, we're now joined by TUF Smashes winner Norman Parke. First of all, Norman, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Right, I know it's quite a while ago now, but obviously congratulations on winning the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the house. Obviously, it was a great series to watch. What was it like being part of the series?
It was great. Representing my country and stuff, and but I never ever actually thought it was going to be picked, and then I just got a phone call on the Friday to say I was going on the win. This was literally last minute, and but once I got that call, it was I was just absolutely over the moon. I knew that was my key to get to where I wanted, and but the whole experience was unbelievable. It's like one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life so far, and but there was mixed emotions inside the house. It was crazy, especially living with the people that you could possibly be fighting in a few weeks' time. And you start to get a connection with them people, and that was a real tough experience, especially in my fights. I wouldn't say it's the best I ever performed in my fights, but it was I did what the best I could, within the circumstances it was in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that stood out to me for that season as well was that the Australians seem to dominate the welterweight division, you know, apart from obviously Brad, who made the final, and the UK team dominated the lightweight division. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I thought the welterweights would have did pretty well. I thought we'd actually won the welterweights because we never really knew much about them, you know, and I kind of knew a few of the welterweights that were on the team, but you know, I wasn't quite surprised that we beat the lightweights because they were, I don't think they even were lightweights. I think they were weights below that, featherweights and bantamweights mixed up, and we were physically bigger and stronger than them, but the welterweights, they were all evenly matched. They were at the perfect weights, but that was the more competition in that area of the whole series.
Yeah, you could definitely, I can definitely see that because I mean I know one of the welterweights, I think it was Richie, is a bantamweight, but then saying that, of course, Mike has dropped down to featherweight. That's his natural weight class. But I mean, obviously, one of the things was in the house as well. There was such a camaraderie between the UK guys, which was to be expected, of course, and. How hard was it then for you to then go and have to fight Brendan in the semi-final when you'd had such a good bond with him in the house?
Yeah, the fight with Brendan was tough because he came in the second or third week because Michael Pasty got injured. So Brendan comes in. I mean, he was doing really well in training, like, and it was one of the best in training actually. And I kind of had a funny feeling I was going to get matched up against him. And but that was a tough fight. So it was. Brendan was a nice kid, you know. Whenever we were training, he was just one of them guys who just go for it. Like there was no holding back, and you know, it was just the whole weight cut, and we actually cut weight together. You know, we were in the same sauna, we were beside each other, we were cutting weight, and we're like, you know, in just a few hours' time, we were going to be smashing heads off each other to try and get a contract for the UFC. And but you know, it was. I just loved the whole experience, and as I said from the start, I didn't care who was put in front of me. The whole show, I was going to win no matter what. It was just my main goal was, you know, I wasn't there to make friends. I did make friends, but I was there for the number one, and that was to get to the finale, and that's what I did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as hard as it is when you're facing people who, you know, you can't help but make friends with people. When you go through an experience like that, it does one or two things. Either pushes you close together or it pushes you further apart. And obviously with the UK guys, it pushes you closer together. But there seems to be you seem to have quite a good relationship with the Australian guys as well. It seemed that most of them, you know, everyone seemed to get on quite well in the house, even though you were having to fight each other. Would you say that was fair to say?
Yeah, when we got there, they made us feel more welcome. They introduced themselves to us, and they were dead on fellas, you know. We would only just play up for the camera sometimes just to get a bit of track going. But I mean, we chatted to them every night, you know, and they were cool, we were cool, and we got on the best. There was never really any fights or anything like that between us at all. It was anything we did that was kind of just did for the cameras. But all them lads, them Australian lads were spot on.
Who would you say you got on with best in the house?
For me, I would say probably Richie, because Richie and then Ben Wall, you know, we didn't really like Ben Wall at the start because it was kind of acting a little bit funny. I think it was just because they was cutting weight for the fight, and apparently it gets real miserable whenever he has to cut weight. So we kind of picked on him for a bit, but he ended up to be he was in our team. He was always joining in on the fun, like food fight and stuff like that. And but you know, Richie and Ben would have been the two that I would probably got on with most. I could chat to them the most.
No, I think one of the characters that stood out for the UK team as well, obviously, was Colin. He was very he was quite mad. He was very much out there. What was it like living with Colin for the period?
Oh, it was great. Like, me and Colin shared a bunk together the whole time we were there. And so he was in my room, you know, because there was four of us that came over in the second flight, which was the four people that was in my room. It was me and Colin and Valentino and Brad Scott. And but Colin, he made the time go in quicker. It was just, he was always full of fun, always full of something to do. And you know, there was never ever a dull moment when Colin was about. And even at training, me and him were training partners as well. We trained all the time. And but without him, it would just never been the same. You know, he made the show, really. He stole the show, actually.
Yeah, he did have a good showing with his fights, and of course with his personality as well. Now, one of the negative things to come out of the season, of course, was the whole mobile phone incident. Can you give us your take on that?
Yeah, it was just a bit crazy, stupid, to be honest. And I'm sure, I said this more times than enough, everybody, makes mistakes, and, we got an opportunity. We got the opportunity to stay there, and I was like, there's no chance I'm going to be fucking up again or doing nothing stupid. Whenever the phone was brought into the house, it was sent a message and stuff, so everybody knew what happened, and but then again, shit happens, so you just got to live with it and move on.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, because when you're away from family, and especially when if you're close with your family, it's so hard to be away, and they want to know how you're getting on, and of course you want to hear from them, so it's understandable. It was just lucky that they didn't decide to do anything further with it. I think they made their point, they made you sweat for a little bit, but at least in the end they just brushed it all under the carpet, which I think was the best thing, because it literally would have taken out half the cast, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there was quite a few of us involved, and I think that, and plus it was near the end of the season anyway, so I thought it was going to be crazy. It was all out, with two of us already in the semi-finals, me and Brendan, and then they'll have to bring in two new bits and then bring in more people. Do you know what I mean? So I thought, it was near the end of the show, and I don't know, maybe it was just Dana just kind of, maybe thought, right, this will fucking put the wind up a little bit, and they'll stick to the rules.
Yeah, I think that was probably the right thing, because obviously we'd already lost Mike from the show, and we'd already lost is it Michael Pasto as well for injury, so we didn't really need to lose any more lightweights, did we?
No chance. We wanted to keep a good, strong team going in the semi-finals. We knew we were all fighting each other, the lightweights anyway. We knew we were going to be competing against each other, so we wanted to just keep all the lads that were there because, and just go for it.
Okay, we'll move away from the show. Let's talk a little bit about the finale, obviously. You faced Colin Fletcher in the finale, and it was a very, very hard-fought fight, which, clearly you won the fight. How difficult was it facing Colin?
Whenever we were in the house, I said that I didn't really want to fight in the house, and I would rather fight here if we get to the finals. For instance, if we get to the final, and then you spend time away, and then you never really hear from each other, and then kind of make the fight a lot easier. And that's what happened. I mean, when I got there, I met him on the Monday. We were out there on the Monday. I met Colin, went over and chatted away to him. But then at the end of the day, there's that thing in the back of your mind saying, there's absolutely no chance you're going to let friendship get in the way of, the key to the fucking the big time. Do you know what I mean? So once the bell rang, it was just a normal fight for me, to be honest. Yeah,
it has to be, doesn't it? Because, like you say, it's an opportunity of a lifetime, and it's not the kind of opportunity you're going to get again. You've got to make the most of it, and we've obviously seen what past winners have gone on to do, and there's no reason why you can't go on and do the same, really, is there?
No reason at all. That's my goal now. I'm there, and it's time to up your game and stay there, because it's true what they say. It's easy getting there, it's harder staying there, and you got to make sure you're on the ball at the time. There's taking no rest, and trying to work the way up them rankings.
Now, before we talk about Jon Tuck, I want to talk a little bit about Carlton Smith. He's somebody we had on the show just after he won his season, which is, of course, around the same time you won your season. And I noticed you two going back and forth a little bit on Twitter. Was you looking to face him at welterweight? Did you want to move up to welterweight?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So it was because something crazy happened at the weigh-ins in Australia. I was just got it real tough. Had a real bad weight cut and felt so ill and everything. And I thought, I was considering moving up to welterweight. So that's why, I took it on myself. How about me and you get it on, bro? I'm moving up to, I thought he was moving to lightweight, you see. Oh. And then he goes, no, I'm staying at welterweight. And I was like, alright, that's cool, because I'm thinking of moving up to welterweight. Would you be up for, getting it on? 2 tough winners, we'll see who the real winner is. And then he was like, yes, no problem. I went on for a wee while, and then I kind of just brushed past,
It's funny, because it's actually worked out that he's facing Robert Whittaker, who obviously won the welterweight division in Australia anyway, so he has ended up getting a tough winner, but obviously he's got the welterweight winner rather than, the lightweight winner. Let's talk a little bit about Jon Tuck then, of course. The story was you were facing Jon Tuck. A couple of weeks out, Jon Tuck gets injured and drops from the card. You believe you're off the card, and then you're told, we'll make weight anyway, you'll get your show money, and just in case anything happens, you're there to cover. So do you want to talk us through the emotions? I mean, talk about a roller coaster. Do you want to talk us through what happened?
Yeah, it was actually the last week of training. It was that Saturday, so we had been fighting the following Saturday. I just finished my last sprinting session in the morning time, So and then I came back and watched the chains and checked. Got an email from the manager just to say that Tuck is out. That's just what I got. Tuck is out. And I was like, fuck this, fuck that. And then he goes, oh, hang on, we might get a replacement. So I think they were trying for a replacement, and then they said, no, there's nobody available. It's just everybody's too heavy or something like that. And then you know, I get an email again later on to say that from Joe Silva to say stay on, and because there's a lot of 155ers fighting on the San Jose card just in case anyone gets injured or anyone like becomes ill or something. And so there's that's a bit crazy. But anyway, I was up there and I just went in waiting before everybody else, and that was crazy because usually you weigh in, you always get an opponent. You don't weigh in, you know, just on yourself. And then that was it. Went out the back and just got rehydrated, and that was it. It was just, you know, cheers, thanks for doing that. You know, plus again, you know, it makes a good impression to the UFC that I was willing to go there and make weight, even though I wouldn't be fighting. You know, it always sets, you know, a good impression that you're willing to do that. And so I believe, you know, everything happens for a reason. This is just part of the plan. I just got to move on and look forward to this next fight coming up.
I think you're right in what you say there, because the UFC looks after its fighters, and I mean, obviously they didn't have to pay you. I mean, obviously you didn't fight, but they did the right thing and they give you your show money, which is exactly what they should do. But they've done that in the past before, which I think is brilliant. But yeah, the fact you showed willing and made weight, and obviously they know that you know that obviously you're serious, which is what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and as another guy says that, you know, that put a good impression in the Rhys, because you know you went up there, did it, you made weight, and I was ready. Even if someone got, you know, someone became ill, say for instance, the day of the fight, I was ready to fight anyway. So it didn't really matter who it was. Any of them boys, I was ready for them.
Yeah, and there was a lot of lightweights on that card, so there was always that chance, because we've seen it happen before. Now, obviously, you've got a new opponent now. You're going to be fighting at UFC 162, which is an absolute mega card. I mean, headlined by Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman, of course, which is just going to be massive. And you're facing Kazuki Tokudomi. What do you know about your opponent?
Well, yeah, I got that name through, and then I was actually, you know, out doing a bit of travelling around San Francisco, and I just got an email from Giuseppe to say, this is the guy, would you be interested? I was like, right, no problem. And then I came back and, you know, kind of looked his name up and seen what it was all about, and yeah, he seems pretty durable everywhere. He's got a good judo base, he's got a bit of boxing, and he's got nice, like, judo takedowns as well, so therefore that makes it an interesting matchup. Stylistically, we're kind of the same type of fighter.
Yeah, and he's, I mean, obviously you both 1-0 in the UFC as well. Obviously you with your winner on the TUF finale, and he won at UFC on Fuel TV Silva versus Stan. Are you just looking forward to just getting in there now and having that first fight after being the winner?
What was that, mate?
Are you just looking forward to just getting back in the octagon and having that first fight as the official winner?
Yeah, I was looking for that Tuck fight was just perfect. Everyone was perfect at that fight. A good training camp in San Diego at the Lions. Them boys had a good training camp there, and you know, and I felt perfect for that fight. I was really looking forward to going out and just having fun and trying new things, and you know, just winning. Really, it was on my mind. There was just absolutely no chance Tuck was getting through me, and even that's the way I'm thinking for this fight. There's no chance he's going to go through me. I feel I watched a couple of his fights, the ones that he lost, and I feel he's open to a lot of shots, and I think he's got a weak chin, so I'm going to put it on him, just to pressure him to see what he's up to.
Now, obviously, you were training in the US for your last fight. Who did you say you were training with? Sorry.
I'm trained with Alliance in San Diego.
So, who were some of the guys that you were training with?
On a daily basis, well, obviously Ross Pearson, he trains there. Mike Chandler, the Bellator lightweight champion. Yeah. Who else was there? I'm trying to figure the guys at my weight. Jeremy Stevens was there. Justin Lawrence was there. And they got a couple of guys from Bellator, like featherweights and lightweights and welterweights. Then we had the grappling coaches was Jimmy Harbison, BJJ black belt, Abu Dhabi world champion as well, and we had Phil Davis was there. He would have took the wrestling class sometimes. And then they had a whole load of there's a few times I went, they have a boxing club in there as well, and they had a lot of pro boxers, so I was sparring with them coming up this fight, like a few times a week, and you know they had a lot of great fighters from everywhere really.
What was it like training with that camp?
That was great. You know, I thought I'd been over here and I'd been getting like smashed up and all this here, but it was I went over there and held my own, more than I thought. So I knew where I was, I knew where I stood, and I knew I was capable of it. And the training was great. It was perfect. Everything was laid out around you. This is what you'll be doing this day. This is what you'll be doing tonight. You know, everyone was very specific for the fight that I was fighting. And the game plan against Tuck was just grind a bit more, put pressure and keep him on the back foot. And once you put him on the back foot, he gets very frustrated and he don't know what to do, and he changes stances because he doesn't really know what to do when he's put under pressure. That was game plan against him. We worked that for ages and worked getting him up on the fence and wearing him down. And whenever he gets tired, try and go for the finish then.
What was going back to the Ultimate Fighter? What was it like having Ross Pearson as your coach?
Oh, he was a great lad. Ross was a great lad. We all clicked on with Ross. Dead on. It's just like one of the lads, really. Guy down the earth, nice fella, and he came across really well. He says he wasn't, I'm not here as a main coach. Like I'll be here for a training partner for any age, and that's what he was. Like I sparred with him a few times, and I was a good lad. Ross, nice fella.
How sweet was it to see him knock out George?
That was the best. I was hoping I knew he was going to do that. Actually, I knew he was going to do that because George. I watched UFC years ago. George was. I remember watching him, and I loved the way he fought. I thought he was a great fighter. But I never knew he had a really, really fucked up personality and sense of humour. He was one of the weirdest fellas I ever met in my life, really. And just to see Ross do that, it put a smile on my face.
Yeah, Ross looked awesome in that fight. He looked good in his last fight as well against Ryan Couture. Obviously with your fight coming up in July, will you be going back out to the US or will you be training near home?
No, I'm going to be here for a few weeks training. I'm going to start my fight camp for it here, on Monday. So, but then I'll be going back out to America for finish off 5 weeks. So just so I'm over there in America, I don't be flying out that last week and feeling jet lagged and like that. It's only San Diego's only another flight to Las Vegas. So they better be out there and finish off a training camp and then just fly out to Vegas on the Monday or something.
Yeah, I think that you've got it. You're right. You can't go out too late because it will kill you with the jet lag. You need to be on top of your game. Obviously, going into such a big fight. I won't keep you much longer, but just wanted to find out about your start. What got you into mixed martial arts?
I'll tell you, the first thing that got me into it was it was a friend actually. A friend introduced me to judo. He's saying there was a judo club that was opened in Bush Military where I live. And I was like, right, I want to check that out. I was always playing football. My football was my main. I played it all through since I was like 5 years old. And I was going to try and make a career at football, but then I just lost interest, and I wanted to try something different. But then I was getting up with all crazy stuff around the street, and getting caught up with the police and the law and all that. End up in court and all that. There bollocks. I knew how to do something and kind of change it around, get my mind focused on something. So then I went to the judo club, and I loved it from the start. Started entering competitions and stuff, and it was actually my first coach there. He was the one that showed me the UFC DVD 1 and 2. So I wanted to check out this cage fighting, as you call it. So I checked it out, and I thought, that's crazy, man. I would love to do that. That's right up my street. So it is. Instead of doing it on the streets, you could actually do it where it's in an event where it's legal. And then I decided to mix things up. I started doing a bit of boxing as well, and then we would do some grappling and stuff. And that's really started from there. When I was 16, that was when I first started martial arts. And whenever I got to 21, I just started taking the whole thing serious. So there you go.
It's certainly paid off as well. I think it's fair to say as well, going into the house, you're one of the more experienced guys. If I remember rightly, you were 16 and 2, and of course, obviously now you're 17 and 2. But you were one of the most experienced people in the house, wasn't you?
Yeah, it would have been. But there was a lot of other experienced guys because a lot of people had the experience in other forms of martial arts. Like Valentino was very experienced. He had a very experienced kickboxer as well. But I had the most experience of everything else in the house.
How different was it for you having had all your fights in either the UK or Ireland? How different was it for you fighting in Australia?
That was I never felt right at all the whole fight, and I think it was jet lag or something. Because after I came off the flight when I landed in Australia, I'd have been walking about. We went and did some sightseeing, walking about, and I felt real dizzy just walking about, and it was crazy. The jet lag messed me up, and then I had a very bad weight cut as well, and that was horrendous. Like, it was, as you see in the weigh-in pictures, look at me, I'm like a crackhead, man. That was crazy. So that's what I say. Anytime I'm ever fighting in America or anywhere else, I'm going to be out there a few weeks in advance at least. If I'm fighting, I'll just be at before the fight, so I'll be fine then.
When you went to Australia then, how many weeks in advance was that?
Oh, when I went to Australia to fight Colin, I landed on I think it was Tuesday morning, exactly. And so then I had to fight that Saturday.
Yeah.
Only really 4 days. It was bad feeling. It felt so heavy and sluggish inside. I remember we had to do a workout, open workouts, and I said to my coach, "Don't be pushing me on these pads because I feel so tired and heavy." And we were only doing pads nice and light, and I felt like I had 5 kilogram weights on my arms, and it's just basically down to jet lag. That's what it was.
Crazy. Well, look, you just got to learn from it, haven't you? I want to say it's been a real pleasure having you onto today, and I really appreciate you coming on and letting me interview you. But before I let you go, Norman, do you want to give you a chance to do any shout-outs? If you want to shout out any friends, family...
I just want to shout out to all the boys in, back in San Diego, California, at Team Alliance. All the boys got me ready for that last fight, so I'll see them all real soon. And a big shout out to my boys, Next Generation of Northern Ireland. That is my club back home here. And, everyone, all the friends, all my family, everyone that supports me, and, a big shout to my sponsors, people who sponsor all my supplements, and, all them other smaller supplements, companies and stuff that sponsor me. And, I guess we'll see you all real soon then. And
what's your Twitter handle as well, Norman, so people can follow you on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, you can get me on Twitter. It's, Norman_Parke, and you can get me on Facebook. I've got a fan page on Facebook, you can catch me there. It's Storming Norman Parke. And that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time today, Norman.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Okay, we're now joined by TUF 17 contestant Gilbert Smith. Thank you for joining us today, Gilbert.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your experiences in the house. Overall, would you say it was a good experience or a bad experience?
It was the best experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about fighting, and to be honest with you, I made some lifelong friends.
I mean, it was fair to say it was one of the best seasons ever. What was it like working and training alongside Jon Jones?
It was a really good experience, to learn from one of the best. No matter if you like the guy or hate the guy, whatever the case may be, you have to respect his talent and to be able to get some wisdom from him and the other coaches. It was a blessing.
To be honest, I think Jon Jones come across really well on the show. He seemed to really care about everybody in his team, and obviously he wanted what was best for them. What was the camaraderie like within your team? What were the people like in your team?
The people on my team was very competitive. All the guys wanted to win, and they wanted to find ways to put themselves in the best position to win. And sometimes it conflicted, with each other, particularly myself. But it was a competition, and so the camaraderie was there, but we also had times where we had conflict. But at the end of the day, we all fighters and we all train to fight, so it played out very well.
Now, to get into the house, obviously you had to fight to get into the house. That's become quite common now. And you were facing Eric Whalen. What did you know about your opponent?
I knew nothing.
You didn't know anything?
I didn't know his record. I didn't know his style. I didn't know where he came from, his team, the people he beat, the people he fought. The only thing I knew is how he looked. And I really only saw him that one day that we weighed in, because
he wasn't a very loud speaking person. He was kind of quiet in the booth, so I really didn't pay attention to him. So I had no idea who he was.
How nice was it to get in there and get the win and get into the house?
You know, that was the biggest moment of my life. You know, it was a lot of stress. You know, the whole season was a lot of stress. But to get that win and to get in the house was it was beautiful, and you know, I was very thankful.
Now, who were some of the people you got on with best in the house?
For my team, I would have to say Dylan. Dylan was just a cool cat. I mean, there's nobody in the house that could say anything bad about Dylan. Clint, another cool cat. You know, once again, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody to say anything bad about Clint. Adam was a funny dude. The other team, you know, I had no issues with nobody in the other team. You know, the truth is, we all had different personalities, which at times made us conflict. But you know, we all really became like brothers, and to this day, we all still talk and chat with each other. So it was just a beautiful thing.
There was a lot of hype during the season as well, of course, on Uriah Hall, and everyone was talking about, or Dana White certainly was talking about him as the man that no one wanted to face. How much of that was hype?
I don't think it was much hype. You know, some of that stuff was kind of warranted. The fact that, you know, Uriah did stuff that nobody else has done in an Ultimate Fighter. I mean, you could hate on it if you want, but I mean, he was a dominant force. You know, it was tough to see him beat some of my teammates, but you have to respect talent, you know. So he's a talented dude.
During during the season, then, with all the fights, what was the biggest what the fuck moment? What was the biggest moment that kind of blew you away out of all the fights?
It was probably obviously Uriah getting a knockout, you know, in the way he did, and it was also Calvin beating Josh. I mean, Calvin was a monster, but you know, training with Josh and seeing Josh talent, I didn't quite seeing that play out the way he played out. And but Calvin proved everybody wrong, and he consistently keep doing it. So, you know, there was a lot of exciting times. Maybe seeing me lose to Luke, I could probably chalk out one of this. So I didn't expect that to happen.
I think it's fair to say that Calvin had an amazing season. I think he surprised everyone. How surprised was you to see Calvin win the final against Uriah Hall?
I wasn't that surprised. The fact is that Uriah can win it and knock Calvin out. And also Calvin could win it and grind anybody out. It was a dog fight. It could have went either way. Both of the guys were talented. Both of the guys had a lot of heart, and they had a lot of hype behind them. So, you know, nothing in that fight shocked me. You know, and, you know, Calvin came in with one thing on his mind, which was to win. And, you know, and I think a lot of the pressures and stuff got to Uriah, but I think Uriah still fought a strong fight. You know, it just came down to he couldn't make that connection, and sometimes that happened in the fighting, and, you know, and Calvin was able to take a split decision. The fight could have went either way.
It was a very, very close fight. It was a very good fight. It was a great way to end a brilliant season. Now, talking about, I wanted to ask you your opinion on the wild card as well, because I was surprised at the two fighters that were picked for the wild card. For me, watching it as a fan, out of the people that were available, my first thought was that it should be Zach Cummings and Clint Hester. And of course, both coaches went the opposite way. They went Kevin Casey and Bubba McDaniel. Who did you think should have got the wild card slots out of who was available?
You know, I thought that Zach Cummings and Clint probably could have got it. But on the flip side, you know, Chael had his reasons for picking Kevin. You know, he thought that Kevin could do better than what he really did, and you know, Kevin's a very talented guy. And then you know, obviously John Jones is a very good friend of ours. It's kind of hard to pick against his friend. He's also the situation. The fact is, the Bubba got 30 fights in the game, and you know, he didn't perform the way he should have, and to like not pick him would just put a lot of hostility in their team, and could have you know killed Bubba, you know, mentally, and emotionally. So, you know, Clint is a strong guy, bright young guy. He has a bright future. So I don't think it exactly hurt him too much. But if I was a coach, I definitely would have probably picked Zach and Clint.
Yeah, I think I probably would have done as well. Obviously, in the finale, you faced Bubba McDaniel. What was it like? Because he was a very experienced guy going to the house, and of course, it was all known that he was training partners with Jon Jones, and obviously, he was your teammate as well. What was it like facing Bubba in the finale?
I thought it was a really awesome experience to fight Bubba. It's what I wanted, it's what I asked for, and to be able to get into the main card, which was crazy in itself. I couldn't believe that happened, and I don't even know why that happened. Personally, a lot of people was mad about that, and I fully understand. I don't think I deserved the main card. There's a lot of other guys that did. Dylan, Josh, all deserved the main card. But either way, fighting Bubba was a great learning experience for me. I went in there initially very, very confident, and I think that there was a couple of things that was missing in my training camp that I didn't get a chance to do, and a lot of mental preparation. I think the whole stage of it all was a lot to soak in, and I think it got to me, and even a little bit of the UFC jitters. With that said, I thought that Bubba and his team did a beautiful job in breaking me down. I would also like to mention, I think he did have a little bit of information, considering that he had Jon Jones and Frank Mir in his camp, because they all trained Greg Jackson. And all those guys were coaching me, so they kind of knew me a little bit. Bubba broke down my half guard a little bit. The only thing I could do was get up and not get a sweep. And, on the show, I was able to utilize my half guard against Bubba a little bit. So I thought that Bubba came in well prepared, and he came in to prove something, and he did a good job.
So what happens with you now? Have you had any word from the UFC on what you need to do to get yourself back into the UFC?
I need to fight. I need to win. Simple. Fight, win. It's about fighting the right people and the right promotions, and a little bit of luck. A little bit of luck goes a long way. Somebody get injured, maybe I can get called in a little bit earlier. But it's simple. This game is not that difficult to understand or figure out. You fight, you win, good things happen. You fight, you lose, you go home. Simple as that.
Have you got any ideas yet on where you'll be fighting next and who you'll be facing?
I have no idea. I've been talking to a couple of promotions, and I'm really excited about fighting for them. So I'm hopefully things will work out. I'm looking at July, August, or late June, July, August, something around that time. I would like to fight and just put on a good show and prove to people that I believe I belong in a big show, and I'm gonna do things right. It's so hard to talk about the situation because you don't want to talk about regrets, but there was a lot of things that went into that fight that that affected me, and I wasn't able to put on my best show. But no excuses. I had one shot. Dan White was honest with me, man. He was honest. He's like, you fight, you lose. I mean, if you lose, you go home. If you fight, maybe you get a contract. So I knew the terms going in, and I knew the person I picked. So I had everything laid out on the table, and I didn't perform. So I have to go back to the drawing board and figure things out. And I've been doing that. I've changed up a lot of things in my camp. I've been doing a lot of real self-assessment, and I've been just evaluating myself, seeing even if I stay at 185, maybe drop down to 170. There's a lot of things I've been addressing lately.
Do you think you will drop down to 170, or will you stay at 185?
Man, I don't know, man. It's difficult. My coaches, my new coaches, my new team, and my old team, my old coaches, all we're all going to come together and collaborate and see if that's the best move. Personally, the way I feel is that the middleweight division is a little bit light, and the 170 division is very stacked. So if there was an easier slot to get in, I think it'd be the middleweight compared to the welterweight. But at the end of the day, I have to do what's best for my career and what gives me the best chance to be the most successful. I am 5'9", I'm stocky, and fighting tall guys, it seems to be a problem that I will have to keep addressing fighting the middleweight, and maybe less of a problem at welterweight. I don't know. So I have to address these issues. But at the end of the day, a fight is a fight. I could fight a welterweight guy that's my height and still lose. So I feel like to me that as long as I'm prepared mentally and physically, it doesn't matter what the height is. So I don't know. it's definitely a lot to take in, and I definitely have to make some strong decisions.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Would you say as well that having been in the Ultimate Fighter, it's opened a lot more doors for you now? A lot more promotions are aware of who you are and are interested in getting you on board.
Yeah, I would definitely say, being on the Ultimate Fighter, people know the name Gilbert. Obviously, before the Ultimate Fighter, nobody knew the name Gilbert. I was a local fighter in Colorado Springs. Then I blew up, and I made things happen so fast, so quick. It's mind-boggling to see how things changed within the last 6-7 months in my life. But I definitely believe it came from hard work and and dedication for my team, my coaches, my training partners, and my wife and kids and my family. But now people do know me. They know my face, they know my name, and hopefully it will play in my favor when it comes to promotions, sponsorships, and different things.
Yeah, I think it will, and I think you obviously. You've shown yourself. The fight with the Bubba was a very, very competitive fight. It was a great fight to watch. And if you carry on doing that, you're heading in the right direction. I just want to say it's been a real pleasure having the opportunity to chat with you today. So thank you very much for agreeing to come on to today's show.
Thank you.
And before we let you go, do you want to do any shout-outs? Shout out any friends, family, sponsors, and let people know about your Facebook and your Twitter as well?
Yeah, definitely. I want to shout out my start off with my team. Team Victory out of Colorado Springs, Factory X. I can't believe I said Factory. That's funny. Factory X out of Denver, Chris Camozzi and Mark Montoya and Chase and Brian Camozzi and Marcus Edwards and Malcolm Versenor and Benjamin Rodriguez and AJ Festa and a whole bunch of my teammates, all the guys. I love them. Thank you for everything. Curtis, Carlos, my coaches, Dave, also, obviously my sponsors, Complete Nutrition, for hooking me up with the best supplements on this planet. Pinino's Restaurant, always giving me great food. And obviously my wife and kids, my mother, my father, and my family. If I miss anybody, I apologize. But, just thanking everybody that's supporting me. In the state of Colorado Springs and the state of Colorado, they supported me. I can't thank these guys enough. And all the local MMA talent and local MMA promotion. It's been great. It's been awesome. And thank you.
We really appreciate your time today. So thank you very much.
All right, brother.
Okay, that was this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Coming up next week, then, we know for definite we've got some interviews booked. We're going to be, we've got booked Neil Goliath Grove, just in the process of sorting all the times up. He should be on next week. He's got a big fight coming up soon. He'll be fighting in Doncaster, and he's facing another former UFC heavyweight, Ollie Thompson, which should be a great fight. Two guys who like to stand and bang, so that's going to be a very exciting fight. And they're fighting at UCFC 5 Keepmoat Stadium, which is headlined by Ian Freeman and Ken Shamrock, which is of course an absolute grudge match. Then we're also going to be joined by Steve Carl. Steve Carl will be co-headlining World Series of Fighting 3. That's been announced today, so it's great to get him on. He's going to let us know what's going on with that. And then one of our friends of the show, Kerry Hughes, she's an up-and-coming fighter. She's one to look out for. She's going to come back on because she's got a fight coming up. So we're looking forward to catching up with her and seeing how her training's gone. I'm also in talks with Bubba McDaniel, so I'm hoping to get that interview for next week as well. So thank you for listening.